The tragic truth about Ben Cousins is that he went from being the face of Australian football to a man stripped of everything that matters in life. Not just his career gone and finished, not just his freedom taken away from him, but his dignity destroyed completely, his fortune squandered and wasted, and the safety of people around him shattered forever. This is the story of how a golden boy with every advantage possible made choices that destroyed lives while a whole system looked the other way deliberately. He was celebrated as a national hero. He was protected by institutions. He was given every excuse. He was enabled at every turn. And when it all fell apart catastrophically, the people he hurt became invisible. Before we go deeper, if this matters to you and you believe in accountability, hit that hype button right now. Give this video some love, because what you are about to hear is the most important cautionary tale in the entire history of Australian football. This is not about just one man falling from grace. This is about systems that enable harm, institutions that deliberately look away, and the often invisible cost paid by victims. When you look at the early years, you see a kid with everything figured out on the surface, but chaos underneath. Ben Cousins was born into a footballing family. His dad, Bryan Cousins, played over 300 games for the Eagles. That name meant something massive in Perth. It meant doors opened. In 1996, when Ben was just 17, he walked onto the field and the club made him an instant star through the father-son rule. The Eagles picked him because his bloodline supposedly guaranteed he would be special. His first game, he kicked 2 goals against Geelong. The next week, they gave him the Rising Star Award. He was labelled a prodigy. By 1998, the media called him football's answer to Brad Pitt, a sex symbol, a cultural icon, a golden boy who would define a generation. But even when he was winning awards as the future of the game, something much darker was already happening. Ben Cousins admitted years later that his drug use started when he was 17, the same year he debuted, the same year he was crowned a rising star. He was already living a double life, and nobody around him noticed. Or maybe they did and they did not care because he was winning games and making money for the club. The system at West Coast Eagles did not just fail him, it created him deliberately. Between 2001 and 2007, the club operated under a deeply toxic culture. Justice William Gillard investigated the drug problems at the Eagles. What it found was absolutely horrifying and damning. The club had official warnings about illicit drug use going back to 1998. There were constant rumors about cocaine and methamphetamine circulating, but the club leadership made a deliberate choice. They chose winning over human health. They chose premierships over player welfare. The Gillard report was explicit and unambiguous. By 2004, most players knew senior members were using hard drugs, but nothing happened. Why? Because these players were winning games. The culture became crystal clear. If you performed on the field, the club would protect you off it. That tainted premiership was not an accident. It was built on lies and institutional failure and willful blindness. There were signs everywhere that the system was fundamentally broken and corrupt. In 2003, taped conversations involving teammates and drug dealers surfaced publicly. Nothing happened, no investigation, no consequences. In 2004, Daniel Kerr tried to present a forged prescription for 50 Valium pills. This is textbook behavior from someone using stimulants and desperately needing something to come down from the high. The club saw this and did absolutely nothing. There were nightclub fights. Ben Cousins was involved in a violent fight with Kerr in 2002. He broke his arm falling downstairs. These were massive red flags that screamed for intervention and help, and they were systematically ignored because the Eagles had something far more important to protect: their image, their success, their reputation. This is where the story gets much darker and harder to explain. Ben Cousins became what he called a highly functional drug addict. That phrase hides the truth. It sounds like someone has it under control, but it means someone lying to everyone: his family, teammates, doctors, league, while his body and mind deteriorate behind closed doors. In 2005, he won the Brownlow Medal. This is the highest individual honour in Australian football. While he was winning that medal, while he was giving acceptance speeches and holding that trophy, he was spending up to $10,000 a week on cocaine and methamphetamine binges. He was a highly functional addict in his narrative, but he was really just an addict who had not yet crashed. He admitted in a documentary called Such Is Life that in 2008 he shaved his entire body and head because he was paranoid about failing a hair analysis test. He was so committed to hiding his drug use from the league that he was willing to do almost anything. This was not a man losing control. This was a man in control of his deception, while his control over everything else was slipping away. The year 2006 was the moment when the mask started cracking publicly in ways that could not be hidden. In February, he abandoned his car and girlfriend on a Perth highway and jumped into the Swan River to escape a police booze bus. This was public, everyone saw it, television cameras caught it, but the Eagles let him come back. They stripped him of captaincy but let him play. He led them to a premiership in September 2006. Whenever anyone talks about that premiership now, they have to talk about the fact it was won by a team built on drugs and lies. Former Sydney Swans player Barry Hall said it was a year you almost have to write off because of the scandals. That premiership trophy is tainted forever, forever marked by what happened behind the scenes. But the premiership was not the worst moment. That came the next year, and it involves another person's death and the complete normalization of addiction among elite athletes. On October 1st, 2007, Ben Cousins visited his friend and mentor, Chris Mainwaring. Mainwaring was a two-time premiership legend. He was also an addict. His wife, Rani, asked Ben to check on him because she believed he was using cocaine. Ben went to the house twice that day. During the second visit, he went into a bedroom with Mainwaring and saw a plate with what he believed to be cocaine. He saw his friend with drugs and left the house. He told investigators Mainwaring appeared fine. 2 hours later, Mainwaring was dead. A cocaine overdose? The state coroner found the environment was so normalized around drug use that a plate of cocaine during a welfare check did not trigger alarm. That is how far gone the culture had become. This tragedy did not save Ben Cousins. It destroyed him. Within weeks, he was arrested in Northbridge. The West Coast Eagles terminated him immediately. The AFL banned him for 12 months for bringing the game into disrepute. But the worst part was that the system keeping him functional was now gone. The structure that enabled him for years was removed. What followed was a complete and devastating collapse into darkness. His life became a series of arrests and public episodes of severe distress. After football, the bill came due completely. By 2012, the physical toll of years of methamphetamine use was catching up with him significantly. His body was breaking down. His mind was breaking down. In March 2015, he led police on a low-speed chase through the suburbs, telling officers it was a family emergency, and he could not stop. Days later, he was found inside the secure fence of Campbell Barracks, headquarters of the Special Air Service Regiment. He was incoherent. He was wandering. He had no idea where he was. They took him immediately to Sir Charles Gairdner Hospital for a mental health assessment. He was no longer a party boy. He was a man experiencing profound psychological collapse. But this is where the story becomes about more than just a man falling apart. It becomes about the people he hurt deeply. Between 2016 and 2020, Ben Cousins was arrested repeatedly for stalking and breaching violence, restraining orders. His victim was his former partner, Malaya Teneshev. What he did to her is the dark center of this entire story, and it is often overlooked because people want to focus on his fall from grace instead of the terror he inflicted. In November 2016, he contacted her 542 times. That is not a typo. 542 separate contacts in a single month. 103 of those were calls in a single day. Just calls, nothing but calls. In early 2017, he bombarded her with more than 2,000 texts and calls over a 2-month period. 2,000. The harassment was relentless and calculated. A magistrate named Richard Houston heard the case and wrote that Cousins' actions caused ongoing terror and misery that was nearly unbearable. He described her anxiety and fear as physical injury because they were. Fear is an injury. What he did was violent. He told her, "I am going to kill you. Take your life, your freedom, and the things you love the most." He threatened to bury her alive while bringing their children to play on her grave. In 2017, he was sentenced to 12 months for aggravated stalking, but he did not change. In 2020, arrested again, 7 months in jail. The magistrate noted he showed absolutely no lasting change after his prison time. This is the tragic truth most do not want to focus on or acknowledge. The media wanted to talk about a talented footballer who fell from grace. But the real tragedy is about a woman who lived in fear every single day. A woman terrorized by hundreds of calls and texts. A woman who heard threats about her life and her children. That is not just a cautionary tale about stardom and pressure. That is a story about violence, harm, and accountability for the people who suffered. While he was stalking and terrorizing someone he claimed to love, his financial situation was collapsing in a way that was almost poetic and tragic in its irony. At the absolute peak of his career, he had everything anyone could possibly want. His contract in 2000 was worth nearly $1 million. Over his entire career in professional football, he earned more than $5 million in total salary. $5 million earned in his 20s and early 30s, money that should have set him up for life. By 2017, his lawyer made a damaging admission in court documents. His lawyer said that Ben Cousins had not worked properly since retiring from football. He was living out of a backpack. He had no fixed address. He was completely homeless. He was living on the streets despite having earned millions. In 2019, even though he was making up to $106,000 a month through personal appearances and his television work, he was still basically broke. Still broke despite $106,000 a month coming in. The debts from his addiction, the debts from his legal battles, the debts from years of spending $10,000 a week on drugs were so massive that all the money meant absolutely nothing at all. Every check disappeared into the void. He went from having the world at his feet, from having millions in the bank, from being a national hero, to having nothing but the clothes on his back in a maximum security prison cell. That is the ultimate measure of bankruptcy, not just financial, but spiritual. Then something unexpected happened that sparked massive controversy in the football community. In recent years, Ben Cousins made a quiet return to the media. He got a job as a sports reader for 7 Network in Perth. Some people saw this as a redemption story, a man climbing back, a road to recovery, but it sparked significant outrage. Critics said that hiring a high-profile convicted stalker was an affront to women. One columnist noted the bizarre nature of seeing a man convicted of stalking beaming at the camera while talking about football, while his victims may still be suffering from deep trauma of his actions. He was getting celebrity treatment, he was getting an A-grade redemption arc that someone without his fame would never get. The average person with his criminal record would not be working on television. The average person convicted of stalking would face massive barriers to employment, but he got a job in one of Australia's biggest networks. That reveals something important about how fame and power protect people. The Hall of Fame debate adds another complicated layer to his legacy and the question of redemption. Ben Cousins has been eligible for the AFL Hall of Fame since 2013, but he has been snubbed repeatedly by the selection committee. The committee says they have not seriously debated him because of criteria around integrity, sportsmanship, and character. Some players and commentators have called for his inclusion, saying his football ability was undeniable. But the AFL Commission has hinted that an induction might only happen in due course if he maintains his current path. It is a waiting game. It is a reminder that his legacy is permanently marked by his actions. The question that haunts this entire story is simple, but absolutely devastating. Was Ben Cousins a man who was broken by a system? Or was he a man who broke the lives of others while the system looked the other way deliberately? The answer is probably both, and that complexity matters deeply. The system at West Coast Eagles deliberately created the conditions for his addiction to flourish and grow. The club actively prioritized winning over warning signs. The AFL allowed a player to keep playing after a very public breakdown. The league let him return to play even after everyone knew something was deeply wrong. That system failure is real and undeniable. That system accountability is necessary. That accountability should have happened years before it did. But he also made choices. He chose to use drugs at 17. He chose to spend $10,000 a week on cocaine and methamphetamine while others suffered. He chose to watch his friend die from an overdose and walk away without acting. He chose to contact a woman 542 times in 1 month. He chose to threaten to kill her. He chose to make threats about their children. Those are not system failures. Those are individual choices made by a person with free will. Those choices had consequences that extended far beyond himself. The invisible cost of the 2005 Brownlow Medal and the 2006 Premiership is a legacy tainted by addiction and the ongoing terror inflicted on his victims. It is a reminder that what happens off the field matters profoundly. It is a reminder that being talented does not exempt you from accountability. It is a reminder that a system built on winning over health will eventually collapse. And when it does, everyone falls down with it. The debris spreads everywhere. But here is where I want to end on something that truly matters. This story is not just about Ben Cousins' individual failure or his dramatic fall from grace. It is about whether real change is possible in a system that is designed to protect the powerful and famous. It is about what accountability actually looks like when someone with resources and celebrity status has done what he has done. It is about understanding that redemption narratives can sometimes erase the voices and suffering of victims. Real redemption is not getting a job on television or radio. Real redemption is not making a quiet return to the media and hoping people forget everything. Real redemption is not an A-grade redemption arc given by an industry that desperately wants to move past the uncomfortable parts of this story. Real redemption is about genuine accountability and systemic change. It is about understanding the specific harm you caused to specific people. It is about naming that harm directly and honestly without excuses. It is about making real amends to the people you hurt. It is about changing in ways that are genuinely uncomfortable, ways that matter to those victims, not just ways that make you feel better about yourself or look good on television. That is what accountability actually looks like in the real world. That is what real recovery requires. And that is the critical lesson this story has to teach us. His legacy is what it should be. It is a reminder that talent and opportunity are not excuses for violence and harm. It is a reminder that systems protecting winners over people will destroy everyone in their wake. And it is a reminder that victims matter infinitely more than legacies, more than premierships, more than redemption narratives, more than anything else in this story. Now, if you made it this far through this entire story, you absolutely know how critical this story truly is. Hit that like button hard, subscribe to the channel today, comment below with what you think about Ben Cousins. and whether you believe real redemption is possible for someone who has done what he has done. And check out the next video right now because we have more stories just like this one waiting for you. Thank you for watching and for caring about victims